Welcome to the Didi and Lital Show. Advice, thoughts, and stories from a married couple on cybersecurity, technology, and life in general. Now here are your hosts, Didi and Lital.
Hello and welcome to the Didi and Lital Show. I'm back from Black Hat and I hate Vegas.
And I'm back from
in
Metallica.
August.
And I love Metallica.
So that's all good. Dima, where are you back? You said you're back from camp. What else is going on?
I'm just trying to readjust back to normal human life.
Yeah.
Watching sports does not help.
Watching sports is awesome.
I don't know. You.
Well,
What are you watching these days?
Swimming in the Seine. He's
Swimming
watching
in the Seine?
Triathletes.
I'm sorry. Getting stomach diseases swimming in the Seine.
Who thought this is a possible thing to do?
That stupid French person.
Politicians.
It's like insane.
But I think the cherry on top of that whole Olympic cake to me was that Turkish pneumatic pistol guy
okay.
that just walked in from the street,
And shoot.
got a medal,
Yeah.
just in a t-shirt and regular glasses, and then I think he said something about tell my wife to give me my scooter back.
Yeah.
And then he left. Like, I'm wondering if they really like some killer, like proper professional killer is like, okay, I need my scooter back, but I don't want to really threaten her, so let me go win an Olympic medal, and maybe that'll teach her.
Yeah, that was part of one of the crazy things, definitely. That was funny. Last time that we talked, not like last episode, but a while back, you were still at Avid, and or maybe you were about to leave and change, and now you are in a different company, right?
Correct. I'm at SEMrush, digital
Alex.
marketing with Alex.
Yeah.
It's night and day in so many ways. The most important one is that their office is in Prudential.
Nice.
Nice. So you go to Boston instead of the suburbs.
Instead of the Burlington location.
Nice.
The atmosphere in the company is just, again, night and day. And there's definitely a vibe of why propagating back to our previous conversation. The why is present and available to everyone and is reinforced positively across the board.
Nice.
And in many ways unconsciously, which is what really makes it so much fun to come to work.
Do people actually come to the office?
Yeah, more and more every day. And I mean,
it's hybrid.
It's hybrid, but I actually want to go to the office.
Because it's in Boston and it's nice.
And it's the people. It's actually the people. You walk the people. It's the atmosphere, the culture. And I've been to the office in Barcelona. I've been to the office in Amsterdam. I haven't been to the office in Belgrade, but I spent like a week there with the team. It's an Eastern European company, but the sort of the
opposite of the Soviet.
The top layer of the milk, the
cream,
the creme de la creme.
The cream of it's like 8200
of the European.
That's how you.
Yeah, you have a lot of talent. That's for sure.
There's a lot of talent there.
Yep. Awesome.
You're tripping over talent there.
Wow,
nice.
That's great. I mean, I've been using the services for years now. I like the product.
And we're shifting into enterprise now.
Okay.
Making enterprise customers a priority. So maybe it's time to connect you with our salesperson.
Sure. I'm pretty sure we already use you.
Exactly. The way they used to be done.
So there is a different product for enterprise. Okay. We'll figure it out.
Take us offline.
Okay.
And I don't know. As you know, I'm now in big evil corporation. My distance from marketing
I can't say whether you are a user or not. That would be under NDA.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Matt will probably know.
We wanted to bring you again as the side of the practitioner and the CISO and kind of like the reality. Because, Didi and I were talking about this fact that, us vendors, we preach about the ideal state and like how things should be done. But the reality is that a lot of those things that you might have wanted to do, you just can't because the reality. And we wanted to talk a little bit about that. I think Didi and I had a lot of discussions around identity specific. It's also true for everything else, vulnerability management, using endpoint detection response and all those kind of things, that the reality of usage of tools or implementation of the ideal of your program, your security program, is at the end of the day far from what you can. And maybe some organizations you could do more. And you talked, maybe last time you talked about you being a transitional one and actually pushing an org to get to a more ideal state. Didi, maybe you start by like what brought you to think about this?
I specifically want to talk about authentication methods.
Of course.
And why people are not using the right one. So authentication methods in my mind, and by the way, NIST is trying to do the same thing, say the same thing, but with a lot of words, the very American way of saying something that should be said in 3 sentences in a document that's about 800 pages.
Job security.
Exactly, that's what you do.
But in
if
reality,
you're a regulatory body.
But in reality, in authentication methods, there are 3 types. Those you shouldn't use: SMS, email, and phone calls. You shouldn't use them.
Those that are stealable, phishable.
It has nothing to do with phishable, stealable, and it's beyond that. They've been proven by the industry in multiple ways to be very compromisable beyond the ability of the user to understand that he has been compromised. So I'm breaking this up into 3 types of authentication methods.
Okay.
The one that you shouldn't be used, because if you can compromise it without the user knowing it in any way, shape, or form. So SMS, you can steal a SIM. You can still reroute the calls. You can take over email. There's a million things that you can do today by a very cheap toolkit that's available for hundreds of dollars. So for me, the fact that if something is available at the cost of hundreds of dollars, it means that Omri tomorrow morning, using your credit card.
Yesterday already did.
Yesterday already did.
Hopefully not. We don't want the Fed to knock on our door.
Exactly.
But yes.
Can do this with no real effort.
Yeah.
And that's stealing SMS. That's dealing with. So these are these. Then there's the ones that are what I would call the industry top standard. So, for example, non-phishable methods using machine-based biometrics from the same access device, the ability to implement device trust, the ability to monitor session breakage within the method, things like that. And that's what NIST puts as what they call AL3.
Yep.
So those are the recommended methods. And then you have everything in between, like push and verified push and RSA tokens and all these things in between that are not it costs you $300 to break with no real effort, but it's also not something that is beyond compromise. So we know that there's push floods, and it doesn't require a lot of effort to do a push flood. We know that verified push is also breakable, but it's not breakable because most people are too lazy to implement verified push, so they're not breaking it. Same goes for RSA tokens, the token rerouting numbers. It's really easy to break them, but it's easier to attack the dummies that are on the bad methods. And you still have enough of them to make it work for the criminals. Work for the criminals. And in that in-between space, there's a scale rank that basically deals with what I love to call, you don't actually outrun the bear or the tiger, you just outrun the dummies. And by that, you basically create yourself a cushion of safety, but it's cushion of safety through deniability. And sometimes those methods are not even that good. It's just that after you train the organization, making the organization make a change is hard. So moving from push to verified push means retraining people. And if you're thinking of a 400,000 person organization or a university, so basically this is a known joke in Duo that every time a university student will meet somebody wearing a Duo shirt, they'll give him a hard time of how come you made us do this. But the reality is that retraining your organization is hard. So most people avoid the moving between the AL1 shouldn't use to AL2, or from the AL2 to the AL3. So that's kind of where my mind's at. It opened up the whole conversation of, and by the way, there's a whole bunch of marketing groups from a whole bunch of authentication teams, including Microsoft, trying to push some of the AL2 methods into the AL3 groups because they don't actually support it technologically and a million other reasons. But the fact is that you have these 3 brackets. And what's the reason not to use just the high ones? Because you know that now you can actually outrun the bear, but you rather deal with the outrunning the dummies.
The primary reason is cost,
No.
Is it?
No.
and I don't mean financial.
Okay.
Okay.
Explain.
Although financial is part of it, but all financial costs being equal, there's still massive difference in costs of transition, re-education, complexity increases, integrations with all the other things that are there, and you both know
Yep.
the issues.
Yep.
And the biggest problem, so if you ask me what's the reason, that's the reason. But that's not the biggest problem. The biggest
Okay.
problem is that we look for the reason not to do something versus the reason to do something. We're back to the why.
Yeah.
What's the why? The why here isn't around the thing. The why is why do the thing.
Yep.
And our whole industry, from vendors to practitioners, is concentrating on the why not,
Yep.
and then fighting that,
Okay.
versus stepping back from that ring altogether and going into the audience and having the fight, quote unquote, in the audience, and not as a fight, but as an evangelical effort.
Okay.
And when it becomes an evangelical effort, it's no longer a fight. It's now a negotiation. It's a compromise discussion. It's a peace summit. So
Diplomacy.
it's
That's what we like.
diplomacy. It's diplomacy through storytelling. Now, how many vendors help practitioners do diplomacy through storytelling?
0.
Not enough, for sure.
And how many do you shouldn't because there's a bear?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
even
yeah,
if there
yeah.
isn't a bear, there's still a bear eating your friend. And
So
you're going
you-
to be next.
You're saying we as an industry don't help enough you, Mr. CISO, work with you to do this evangelical, let's go drive a change.
We drive things through fear versus
Instead of
education.
you saying, oh my God, I need to now go implement, I don't know, beyond identity as on all the device and the mobile phones of all my employees.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got to do all of that.
Yes, exactly.
I'm tired just thinking about it. I'm not going to think about it.
Right. You need to deploy now how many
More
machines.
important things to do.
Right.
And it's a quarter end, and a next board presentation, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and all of a sudden the year has gone by, and I'm still in AL1.
And Gilly bribed me to buy 2 of his products. So
Right.
I want to put them first.
Exactly.
Well, okay.
That's a
Not
joke.
bri-
That's a joke.
That's a joke.
I know. Not
Incentivized.
bribed, incentivized in some
In a gray area way. In a
exactly.
gray way.
Unclear
In a
way.
very Israeli way.
In very very Israeli way. But to add to that, we are not helping you because we are traumatized and carry so much PTSD that we can't even go to a peace summit. To us, a peace summit is a waste of time. We got windows to close and
You just blue screened us 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, in my gym, half the TVs are blue.
Blue
Literally,
screen.
there are blue screens of death. Like
Yes.
the big screen TVs.
Still,
Well, not anymore. I mean, it looks
hopefully somebody reboot the machine
it
by
took,
now.
like it was like a week. Like
Yeah, until the IT guy of the gym came
and then
in.
it kept like, oh yeah, it's that thing again. Oh wow.
You didn't offer them to do the reboot?
I honestly thought about it.
I'm sure you were
And I'm
about
like,
to
you know
do
what,
it.
that's not my job. That's not my job. So there is not enough, or almost at all, any evangelizing by the vendor about evangelizing.
An outcome.
So, there's not enough talking about how to talk.
Yeah.
And there is not enough talking about the thing itself. That's 2 separate layers. And so as a result, we don't know we should be talking, so we can't even ask you, the vendors. And on top of that, you're helping us reinforce the problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Sasha, by the way, had a very interesting... You remember Sasha, right? So Sasha had a very interesting.
One of your
observation.
team members, for
Yes.
those that don't know Sasha.
Yes. No, first I'm verifying that the guest knows who I'm talking about before.
This is AL4.
Yes. So
He verifies that you
Yes.
your identity.
I
Third
verify-
factor authentication.
Yeah.
First, I verify that Dima knows who I'm talking about before I explain for the rest of the audience. But he's my head of data science, very, very
I was
sharp.
going to say,
guy.
very sharp data guy that is maybe barely human.
Yeah. And one of the things that he basically...
Sorry, Sasha.
One of the things that he said that I really loved is he says he's always surprised when we roll out something with customers and it works the first time to see the surprise on their face. Because he says that when we roll out something and it works, the customers are surprised.
That's the PTSD.
It's a PTSD because they expect it to fail repeatedly.
You know what it's like? It's like I'm in a trench, right? I just got shot in my arm. I'm pulling out my tourniquet, and I am applying it, expecting it to not work. Oh, crap, it works.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I almost just bled out, right?
Yes.
So like,
And you still lost your head.
so like, that's the extent of the PTSD we carry.
This is a very important...
That's so sad.
Exactly. It's very sad for us as the state of the industry. But I really loved your point because I think, Lital, this is going back to our authentication method discussion. One of the things that I believe, I truly believe, and I could be wrong, is that the grade 3 ones actually make customers' lives better. Because what is it easier, to click a number, do something, or to put your
Put your
finger
biometrics.
on,
And instead of selling that,
yeah,
we're selling that this is going to make you run faster than the bear.
yes, exactly.
Instead of, this would be great running.
Yes.
And not forget, they're already doing it when they use the Google Pay, Apple Pay. So they're so used to it as consumers.
I'm going to steal an example from someone that I met, another fellow student in a school of, let's call it self-improvement. He said something about how people are taught equipment safety in skydiving.
Yep.
They're not ever told what not to do. They're only told what to do.
Yep.
Because you will obsess on the not to do.
You don't want to reinforce in any way at all the things that should not happen.
It's
So
like the warning on the cigarettes that only make people that smoke more.
it's right. It's like this is going to make you run faster than your friend, or this is going to make you run faster than the bear. I just want to go run.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't want to know about the bear and the friend that's being eaten behind me. And that's PTSD. You're reinforcing my I just want to run away from that PTSD.
That's very valuable. So, as somebody that's also a CISO of a company that's global, one of the things I want to ask is, I know that internally, a lot of security companies use European regulations and as excuses to not do stuff. And my gut says it's mostly BS, but I'd love to know how much of this is real and how much of this is people making excuses of not to do the right thing.
I think we got AL3 in most, if not all, places, and no one ever mentioned European regulations.
This is good because everybody says, well, the Europeans don't want to install anything.
And now that you've said it, of course, someone is going to. Now you've made my job difficult. Now
Why
you're-
would European regulation, tell you not to use biometrics and stuff?
Give me a fingerprint. I'm going to steal it. And I'm
Oh,
gonna,
yeah.
But here's the thing.
But don't they use it on for the consumer use cases?
La, 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 la.
Oh, okay. So that's okay for payments, but
It's job
no.
security for someone.
Yeah.
I think it's something else. I think this is a little bit of the not explaining because the level 2 methods require IP addresses and other things to keep them secure and keep them fast.
What's an IP address?
Exactly. It's basically the...
And now you're going into explanation that's either triggering my PTSD or triggering my... I don't know what he's talking about.
Exactly. But from my perspective, one of the things that is interesting is that people don't explain the Lee. I call it... We have our personas. The endpoint persona...
You call him Lee?
Yeah. The endpoint persona, I think... doesn't care so much about their privacy as people want to portray.
Don't get me started on that.
And second, one of the things that they have, there's a lot of myth and legend. I think, in the organizations. Like the operating systems have released like 5 years ago what is called the Hulu location capability. Why Hulu needs to enforce, content filtering. So there's a way to know location in a way that doesn't breach your privacy. I don't know that Dima's in Westwood. I know that Dima is somewhere in Massachusetts, so I can let you watch Patriots content, but not Jets content. And that's been available by the OS vendors for years. But every time you talk about this with the security vendors, it's like, no, users don't want to know about location. Rather than spend the effort of educating people to say, hey, there's this location and there's this location.
So you right now, ironically, you're talking about the same issue. There is a myth that's been propagated by someone somewhere somehow.
Yes.
And instead of establishing a better myth, we are still doing the old myth.
Yes.
How's
We're
it
just
different?
explaining why it's different.
How's it different from AL1 to AL2 shift?
Yeah.
Why would I shift from a bad myth to a good myth? What's the point?
There's no point.
Is there? So that's the
my
fight.
point is that people need to stop talking about the myths. They should talk about the reality. But it could be that I'm an engineer and I'm too
when
stuck in
people
the
are faced with reality, they usually lose their mind.
You're saying blue pill, red pill?
No, it's. We need a new show for just this conversation.
Yeah, Dave. Where are you on the red pill and the blue pill? Would you take the red pill or the blue pill?
One pill makes Alice smaller and one makes her large.
I think he's got a wrong myth.
I'm familiar with the Matrix. I forget which is which.
Nobody remembers.
Blue
Nobody
is normal.
knows.
No, people remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
Blue is
You remember.
go back to regular life. Red is reality as it is.
I think it was the other way around because if you remember, there was.
I just Googled it like 3 days ago. So I'm just giving you what I Googled.
Okay.
But Didi, is your question applying this to real life somehow, or?
So from my perspective, do people actually care about? Do people want the blue pill or do they want the red
I don't.
pill? Do they
In
want
today's reality, people want to stay in the reality.
people
I
want to
think.
stay in reality or they prefer the Matrix? I think people prefer the Matrix, as Dima is saying. But I do think that at least the decision makers need to accept that they need to understand reality.
That I agree, and we have not enough of that.
Yep. So this is an interesting element. And by the way, if we are talking about the Matrix, as you can see, I share the haircut. And I didn't put the glasses on because I'm not looking directly into the light, so I'm not squinting.
I want to
as
see
much.
him with that little, the glasses that he's got, the ones that just
Yes.
hold on to
Just the ones that.
that I have.
That's
I have
reading
those.
glasses that he has.
next Halloween. That's
Next time.
Yeah.
So when you are kind of like educating the organization about doing shifts, what do you do in the evangelizing part?
So the first part is to make sure. The first part is building the understanding of that within the team.
Your security, your team, the security
my
team.
team.
Yeah.
That evangelizing is a tool that can be used, and actually using it within the team first, showing them that it is useful.
So there will be the tests.
They are right.
Test group.
They are the leaders of the people.
Yeah.
You have to teach the leaders of the people before the leaders of the people can lead the people. So that has been ongoing. I've been in the company for 8 months. It's been ongoing, and it's, I would say, happily moving forward. We've still got some ways to go, but it's definitely improving. And they're seeing the results. And in fact, they've been doing some of that themselves. They just don't see it. And when pointed out, that's speaking of bringing them to reality. They're doing it. They're just in the matrix of not knowing that they're doing it. When they recognize that it's A, possible, B, doable, C, effective, D, result producing, efficient and effective, then you can step back and just sort of guide them in language and in other things. And so I'm at the point now with the team. Let me rephrase it. The team is now at the point where they're shifting up into the language piece, just already now, just trying to get the language down to what would be the most effective. And that's always going to be this little wave. And of course, then there's the rest of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And just this last couple of weeks, I've made a mistake of talking about it instead of doing it
Yep.
with people outside of the group, and immediately got pushback, and that was my fault, because talking about it doesn't work.
Yep.
It has to be done with and by them for them to feel the reality,
Yep.
and then they can accept it.
So you're saying that's an interesting point, because like we all, in whatever area of business, security, not security, we have this tendency of announcing a change or announcing we're going to do, or a project coming up, and you're saying you're actually shooting yourself by announcing, because you are inviting
Opposition.
opposition, objections, and so instead of not announcing, going into the drill, kind of.
This one smart bald
That's
guy
interesting.
told me a story about his grandmother, who used to just sort of mention this book that she's read about these cool things that were happening in the book.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, what is that
Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
Without that's exactly what it's about.
So you would prefer, for if I'm kind of like hearing you, that your team will go around and maybe show the new things that they already using.
It's not even showing. It's not. That's not going to work.
Okay.
Talking and showing won't work. Talking in actually talking the myth,
Yep.
not talking about the myth, talking the myth.
How do you go about it in an environment? You're part of management. I assume you need to come to your management with, your quarterly goals. This is what we're going to do. So you're supposed to kind of like tell what's up and coming. So how do you deal with that? Because I totally see your idea of like, I shouldn't talk, I should just do and let people experience stuff. But corporates are kind of the plan. Then you need to show your plan before you do anything. So it's kind of like how you deal with this duality.
It's a great question. The beauty is that the end goal we can talk about, and the strategy of getting to that end goal we can talk about, and even the plan to implement the strategy we can talk about, but the specific tactics of plan implementation of exactly how we're going to get a particular team to do a particular thing, we don't need to. It's too detailed.
Okay.
No one wants.
So you get away, but not talking about the details, and the details will kind of show themselves.
Yeah.
Cool. This is interesting.
That's a very good.
I can't tell you what the matrix is.
I need to show you.
I need to show you.
Yeah.
So does your management sometimes want to see the details, or like you train them to like, this is the high level, we will implement?
I'm still in the learning curve of this,
Yeah.
because sometimes I want to tell them, and then immediately backfires.
Yep.
That's such a good learning. I think most people don't have this aha. They they're so used to being in the trauma,
Yeah.
and like saying, yeah, there's going to be pains and we're going to go through that and blah, blah, blah. Just, dealing with the objections. I think all of us
We pre-deal with the objection before we tried.
We're trained to just do objection handling.
Instead of not
and we
having
expect them.
objections.
Yeah.
Right.
And by the way, my view, as you know, I believe in the Yoda way. There is do and do not. There is no try.
There's no try.
There's no try. There's do and do not. And I always believe in
We just do the dishes. We don't talk about why we want or don't want to do dishes. We just do the dishes.
Yes, and same goes towards the element of like ask for forgiveness rather than ask for permission.
And I think that's the thing that when we're dealing in corporate environments, we are so used to like talking before, then actually doing, then talking after,
I'll tell
then
them what I'm
analyzing.
going to tell them. Then I
And
tell them, and then I tell them what I told them.
Exactly.
Yes.
And there is no thinking about this psychological impact that the telling actually
Triggers.
harms the doing sometimes. So this is so interesting. Like, I think always in any organization, probably when you're saying we're going to do something, there's going to be like 20% of the people, 10 or whatever, that they're not with you. Wouldn't you rather everybody's with you, just going because you don't tell them we're just doing something?
So
and a few drops on, but probably very less of the 20% of that are the always no.
Instead of telling them what we're going to be doing, we are telling them how it's going to be.
Yep. And there's also another element.
If anyone asks.
Yeah. When people talk about engineers will always say, why did you do it this way? Because they're trained to do this. When you just do, there's no question of why did you do it this way? And now you start arguing about this way or not this way. There's also another thing that we learned, Lital and I, in a very interesting session once, about the fact that sometimes people will argue, even when they agree with you, as a fact that they want to get recognition that they had the idea.
I think it's also
and this is
smart people like the intellectual challenge.
Yeah.
We all like the arguing, right? We just did it in our previous episode or so. Even if we agree on things, I mean, we're curious people, and we want to find different ways of doing stuff, and we want to poke holes. So, like, we don't want to just agree.
Yep.
That's our
Some people do.
Yep.
right.
That's their destiny.
Right.
Our destiny is to improve, come up with answers, and lead the way. So, it's kind of hard for us to talk about how other people are doing it because we're us already.
And I think what's maybe tell me how you think about the way I'm thinking about what you're doing here of like we're going to do. It's not that, no, you're not going to ask questions. You can ask them as we go. We can improve it as we go.
The questions are part of doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another question of analysis.
Yeah, not the hypothetical.
Yeah,
Let's not have hypothetical. Let's start working on it and solve it as we go.
There is a part where we have to pre-plan all of the myth building. There's a term for this. It's called myth building, and it's applied at such a high level we almost never see it. For example, USSR is a product of myth building.
Yes.
At geopolitical scale. Most countries are products of myth building countries.
Yeah.
Yep. Nationality, this kind of like
all of that
you
is
have
really
stories.
just myth building, and most of the myth building that we are familiar with is less than 200-300 years old. Very little of existing myth building is older than that survived. For example, Jewish calendar 5,700.
Probably religions have this heritage that is older.
The thing that unites all of the things that last the longest is that storytelling.
Yes.
It's about how it is and how it's going to and it's going to be this way. And this is the story. We're telling you the story. There's no, well, what if we do it this way? What if we do it this way? This is our story, and we are creating our reality, and history will tell whether we're successful or not.
Mm-hmm.
We are not going to be the ones to tell whether we were successful.
Lital, as both of us have meetings, because I can see this conversation heading forever, I think we should start wrapping up.
That's perfect. I think we gave people a little bit of new things to think about.
Yes,
for
definitely.
Implementing projects.
Yes, very much so. And also understanding at least the core of the objections of implementing things, and how much of the things that the demons that we fear are myths versus reality. Cool. With that thought and understanding that people are geared to doing not doing things, let's end here.
Well, thank you for joining us on the Didi and Lital show. Thank you, Dima, for sharing your PTSDs and how to help get over them by storytelling.
And implement the right authentication method.
Absolutely. Go to
AL3 for the win. Wait, for the win.
use your biometrics. If you like us, please rate and review us wherever you get your podcast. We will be here next week
Yes.
with similar jokes or maybe a few new ones. And Didi telling more about whatever he learns about NFL season.
Not good things.
Yeah, still preseason. See you next week.
you
Thank
next week.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.